The ordinary face of evil, the John Wayne Gacy story. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, the second of 3 children in a blue-collar Catholic family. His father, John Stanley Gacy, was a machinist and alcoholic World War I veteran who physically and emotionally abused young John, calling him weak and unmanly. His mother, Marion, kept the household together while 2 sisters looked on. Gacy's childhood was marred by social awkwardness, health problems, and early sexual trauma. According to biography.com, he was molested in his youth and exhibited disturbing tendencies early on. These layers of trauma set the stage for the man who would one day be known as the Killer Clown. After high school, he eventually graduated from Northwestern Business College. In 1964, he married Marlon Myers, moved to Waterloo, Iowa, to manage her family's KFC franchises, and had 2 children. But in 1968, his world unraveled. He was arrested for sexually assaulting teenage boys, convicted of sodomy, and sentenced to 10 years in prison, serving only 18 months. His wife divorced him soon after. Released on parole in 1970, Gacy returned to Chicago, married his high school sweetheart Carol Hoff in 1972, and started PDM Contractors, a home improvement business. He hired many young men, some of whom would become his victims. Gacy also joined civic groups, performed as a clown named Pogo the Clown, or Killer Clown, at children's parties and parades, and maintained a friendly façade. In May 1978, he even met First Lady Rosalind Carter at a Polish Day parade. The horrors behind the door. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy murdered at least 33 teenage boys and young men, mostly aged 14 to 21. His method was grotesquely methodical. He would lure victims with offers of construction work or promise of community service jobs. Once inside, he'd handcuff them under the guise of a magic trick, then rape, torture, and strangle them, sometimes with a garrote, or by drowning or stabbing. His first known murder occurred on January 3, 1972, when he stabbed 16-year-old Timothy Jack McCoy, who was traveling through Chicago on a Greyhound bus. McCoy had asked Gacy for directions and ended up slaughtered and buried in Gacy's crawl space. Torture methods. Coarse handcuffs, burned with candles, drowned in bathtub, or restrained underwater. Urinated on victims to demean them. Kept bodies in his home for days before burial. He buried 26 victims beneath his crawl space, 3 elsewhere on his property, and dumped 4 bodies into the Des Plaines River. 5 of his victims are still unidentified, though in 2021 DNA work helped identify at least 1. Francis Wayne Alexander, recently giving closure to his family. The mask unravels. Gacy's grip on his secret world finally slipped in December 1978. The disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest, a local teen last seen with Gacy, raised red flags. Investigators discovered Piest's receipts in Gacy's home, executing search warrants, They found 29 bodies in the crawl space, more graves on the grounds, and remains in the river. On December 22, 1978, Gacy confessed to killing over 24 victims. Trial, execution, and legacy. Charged with 33 murders, indecent liberties with a child, deviate sexual assault, and sodomy, Gacy was convicted on March 12, 1980. After just 2 hours of jury deliberation, he received the death penalty on March 13, 1980, and was housed at Minard Correctional Center before being transferred to Stateville Correctional Center. On May 10, 1994, at age 52, Gacy was executed by lethal injection. He was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m. Interestingly, while popular legend cites his last words as "kiss my ass," neither his attorney nor eyewitnesses confirmed that. He had previously converted to Catholicism and received last rites. His execution was reportedly problematic, raising ethical questions about capital punishment. The man behind the mask. In death, Gacy remained a paradox, a civic-minded clown who tortured and killed his victims in his home, a businessman and political volunteer who was a relentless predator. His public persona, volunteering at hospitals, charming co-workers, even hosting community events, masked his ghastly nighttime deeds. Psychologists diagnosed him with underlying sadistic, narcissistic, and sociopathic traits. His crimes forced a cultural reckoning. The dissonance between normal community figures and hidden monsters, the vulnerability of marginalized youths, the limits of early policing in the absence of databases and forensic DNA. Even decades later, public fascination endures. Documentaries like Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy Tapes 2022, dig deeper into his psyche. In 2025, People magazine revisited the case, reminding us that Gacy met First Lady Carter just months before he was caught. A scripted Peacock series, Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy, is in development. Gacy's story is a documentary of duality, the clown and the killer coexisting in one man. He wore a mask of normalcy and goodwill, while underneath lurked a carefully disguised monster who preyed on vulnerable young men and boys. The most horrifying monsters aren't always lurking in shadows. They might just be smiling in the spotlight.